Middle Path Radio, your source of Islamic knowledge.
Assalamu alaikum to my listeners and the brothers in the studio. Welcome again to Straight Talk. Tonight we will be talking about the persecution that Rohingya Muslims are facing in Burma. With us is our regular contributor, Brother Khairul Islam, and special guest, Brother Ahmad Uddin, who's been following and writing about the Burmese issues for almost a decade. Assalamu alaikum, brothers.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
Brothers, Brother Ahmad, if you could give us kindly a picture of the current reality in Burma.
Sure. Yeah, I can. If you think about what's happening in Burma, this is not a new issue. It's been happening for a long time, and this is a recent flare-up in a long-running history where the Muslims in Burma have been really persecuted. The recent issue, the flare-up, happened on the 9th of October. When the Muslim, there were some border guards near the Bangladesh border that were attacked and they were killed. And in response, this is what has triggered the recent escalation and the atrocities against the Burmese people, because the Burmese army and the military and the government have been blaming the Rohingya Muslims and elements of them for taking up arms and killing the soldiers, and this had led them to do what they're doing now. But this issue has been going on for many decades. It's not recent. So it's been flare up in 2001, in 2012, and this is just another flare up as well. And this is a very sad situation that the Burmese Muslims find themselves once again at the mercy and no one to help them.
I mean, it'd be good if you could explain who are the Rohingya Muslims, and since when have Muslims been in Burma?
Okay.
Well, before that, can I just interject here? If we go into some of the aspects, it's horrific. Some of the stories that's come out, and they've basically faced all sorts of persecution, whether it's rape, whether it's extortion, whether it's the houses are being burnt and babies are being taken from their laps and thrown into the fire. Drugged, taken away, people becoming missing. So this is what's happening. There was a satellite image, I think, where a few days before there was a whole village, and then a few days later, that same image showed hundreds of houses not there. Yeah, and some of the stories I've listened to from people that's coming out from there. People are so scared. They're digging holes in open fields and living in those holes because of the dangers. What we heard last week was terrible from the army in terms of using gunships and helicopters and firing at the villagers as they run, killing dozens. Is that correct?
It's correct. This is because you got to remember, this is an ongoing issue, and it hasn't been hidden under the carpet, and there's been an international media silence, except on social media, alhamdulillah, where the Muslims have been quick to spread the message. There hasn't been much media coverage from the mainstream media, but the history of the Muslims in Burma goes back decades, and the Burmese government wants you to believe that they're recent and they're from Bangladesh, which is not the case. The Burmese Muslims have been there since the 8th century, when traders came under the Abbasid Khilafah of Harun Rashid, and they've been living there. And then one thing is hidden is the rich history of Muslims in Burma, where they have even mosques, they have certain roads named after Muslims in the Rakhine state. And they are very well entrenched in the community, and they've been there for centuries, and they've been persecuted from many years, as Brother Khairul was saying. Since World War II, the persecution has increased, and then the military in the 70s, in the 80s, 250,000 of them fled to Bangladesh. Then again in the 90s, and then again in 2001, 2012, and they've been raped, torture. They're at the moment currently in Burma. They are in open prison camps, where they cannot leave. They cannot leave the camps. They cannot have employment. They have to get permission to have children. They have to have permission to marry. They have no right to education, no right to employment. Many of them are suffering from malnutrition. No aid companies are allowed in unless authorized by the army or the military or the Burmese government. If any of the Muslims leave actually the Burmese camp, the camp that they're in, they get arrested by the military and tortured, or if there's some vigilante groups out there, that if they find you, they will actually kill these people. They will kill them, and you will not be seen. And this is the plight that they are in. They are living in fear. And this has led to many of them over the centuries trying to flee to different countries. But they are in a dire situation with an open prison camp, but no one's talking about how that situation is.
If it wasn't for social media, we might have not known what was going on. And obviously we see a complete mainstream media blackout.
This is a definite, brother. This is what the alhamdulillah. This is a good positive sign that the alternative media have really reached out and is now putting issues like Burma, issues like Kashmir on the map. Whereas the mainstream media will not talk about. They're probably talking about Brexit. They're talking about Trump. Where this is an issue where people are actually dying, and there are atrocities against people, and the media are not highlighting. There may be a little piece on the media, but actually it's the Muslims and social media that is spreading this awareness. And I'll give you an example. I ran a Facebook page, and a recent demonstration was happening in Bangladesh, and the Muslims in Bangladesh came out on the roads, and that video that we posted on the Facebook page it reached over 65,000 people, shared by hundreds of people, and has gone everywhere. That is a good sign that Muslims are actually knowing about Burma. And it's good to see the Muslims in Bangladesh, to the UK, to different countries, sharing news and about Burma and exposing the silent treatment that they've been given.
Actually, the Burmese issue is not a small issue, is it?
No.
It's interesting. We know so much about ISIS.
Yeah.
And we haven't had ISIS using helicopters and gunships and shooting innocent people. Yes, we've heard about them persecuting the Yazidis.
So what you're trying to say, ISIS would be ashamed of what's going on. What the monks are supposedly doing.
So now you start thinking, what's the motivation in terms of the media? In terms of how comes there's so much media blackout there? Yeah, we need to ask those kind of questions. Yeah, these people, what they're doing. If we think ISIS is bad, they're worse. Yeah, so definitely they should be covered. Yeah, these things should have been in the media, yet it isn't. It's not like they don't know. It's in all over social media. If you go to any Facebook page, it's there. People are talking about it. You can't hide it. So what's going on?
I think it's a contrast. From 2007, I've been following this issue, and back then many people didn't even know there was Muslims in Burma. Many people didn't know that they existed. And that opened my eyes when I started researching into the Burmese Muslim people, that they exist. There's over 1 million in Burma itself, and they've been through it worse. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. And even if they leave the country, they face difficulties, and they are sold to people smugglers. And there's some horrific cases where they've been fled to Thailand. They went to Indonesia, and they've been helped in jungle camps where they've been raped, tortured, women and men. And they've been asked to call relatives, in Malaysia and in Indonesia, telling them, please give us money, or then you can hear them screaming. And there's mass graves in the jungle out there, literally mass graves. So there is a side that, there's a story bigger than what it is at the moment.
I think Al Jazeera did a documentary on what you're saying regarding that.
There was one brother who escaped to Malaysia, and he was talking about his story about how they used to live in the fields, and he had 3 children, and these were basically kidnapped, and some of them abducted. A 5-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old. So these are the fears that the people there have.
It's a hatred that they have. This is it. You have to nail on the point. Is a hatred for Muslims. It's not against a ethnic person. The Muslim faith they are scared of. They say Muslims they're going to multiply, they're going to come and attack us. They believe in jihad. They're not only going after ethnic groups like the Rohingyas are Muslims. They burned their mosques down, their madrasas down, imams have been killed. And we got to remember, the listeners and the Muslims around the world, they have Muslim names like us. Like the baby, a 6-month-old baby, that died in Bangladesh, Amar, yeah, he died in Bangladesh his mother and his father, they crossed Burma, and he died of malnutrition. And you can see the shocking images of his body on social media. Or, you can talk about 18-year-old Akram. I'm giving you names so to remember that there is a human Muslim element that we're linked to there, that these are actually affecting, they got Muslim names like us. And they are Muslims, and we cannot, close our eyes to this.
Before coming to the show, I was speaking to a brother who lived with his father, who was a diplomat in Burma in 1988, and I asked him what it was like. So he gave me a little insight. He said, if you're a Muslim, no one will give you a job. So what do the Muslims do? They do their own businesses, and they're very successful with their businesses, and that they are envied for that, and
what's the first thing that get attacked when flare-ups happen is businesses get burnt to the ground. The Burmese people take over those businesses. Again, in this recent escalation, mosques were attacked, local houses got razed to the ground, as Brother Cairo was saying, and also Muslim businesses, given their livelihood is gone. And there is some Muslims that live in the camps, and there are some Muslims that live outside the camps. Those are the businesses. And every time an escalation happens, everyone is targeted. And the Muslims, doesn't matter if you're innocent, guilty, everyone is targeted. And your business, your livelihood, everything is affected by that.
Okay. I think there was a protest back in 2012 where it was suppressed by the military. The monks were protesting.
Yeah.
And the response America gave with sanctions and various other actions that they took against the military ruling elite is completely different when the Muslims are being persecuted. Why is that?
This is the protest that the monks did was a saffron protest revolution that they came out. They were protesting in Burma, and again, we got to remember the current climate that the Burmese government is coming from. They've been ruled by a military junta, a strict military junta for decades, and it's only recently in the elections when Aung San Suu Kyi became the leader, and her party, the Democratic Party, won. But before that, Burma has been in the cold, and their only allies were China, primarily China. They backed them financially, backed them militarily, and now that they're coming out of the cold, you will see Western companies from Britain, from America. Burma is ripe at the moment. Like Vietnam was, they are ripe for the moment economically to be benefit. And that's why you see a silence from America, from Britain. It's only when the interests are served that you will hear about these voices, that they will be actually, where is the condemnation about the human rights violations of the Burmese people, Muslims in there? You're talking about the United Nations. Some people say we should go, speak to the United Nations. There was a United Nations mission led by Kofi Annan just weeks ago. They came to see what's happening. And there was nothing. That commission looked into it, made some recommendations. Nothing happened. And that nothing's going to change. But the United Nations is a waste organization that hasn't done nothing, whether it's in Burma or in any other countries, and it has no weight. And even when it came to the Burma, the Buddhists and the Burmese government, sent out their goons, and they were attacking the UN delegation. So you can see different people have different interests, and this is happening very unfortunately Muslims are facing.
Let me just once again, for my listeners, you can call in. You can text message us on 074 77 080 248. Or tweet us at Middle Path Radio. We have a question that's come through in one of the messages. Is how are Bangladeshi people helping in the border? Are they taking the Rohingya in?
Okay, this is a delicate issue, and at the moment, Alhamdulillah, Bangladesh have over the past, as I said many times, when there's a risk, Bangladesh is the only government, Bangladesh is the only Muslim country that borders Burma, and the state in Burma where the Muslims are, that's very close to the border of Bangladesh. So when there has been an escalation in the past, thousands have fled to Bangladesh. Currently, around 250,000 to 300,000 people, Burmese Muslims, Rohingya, live in Chittagong and in Bangladesh itself. And every time there's an escalation, this is the country naturally they go to. But the issue has been, the Bangladesh government has a two policy. One, yes, people are going in illegally and they can't do nothing. But they have a policy which has been in place from 2012, which is called push the boats back. And recently they have pushed hundreds of boats back. And you won't see that in the media. You've only seen the people that come through illegally that have managed to get in. And they have, bypassed the border. There's been a policy in place from the government itself where it's denying Rohingya Muslims, and they have an agreement with the Burmese to push them back. And they go back, they give them food, and they go back into the sea. Well, alhamdulillah, the people in recent times, the Bangladeshi people, they have been seeing the persecution, and they are opening their arms up. And I know many cases, and I'm in contact with brothers in Bangladesh that have actually said the villages are helping on the border. They help all the time the Burmese Muslims that come over. They give them food, they give them shelter, they help them move on to the next set of the journey. But the government policy, the response has been, very, very heartless. And you can have a look at the videos that Hasina has done on Al Jazeera, on other channels that you see her response. But the policy at the moment in Bangladesh is push the boats back, which is a heartless policy from a Muslim country.
Can I ask Brother Ahmed's questions as well, if that's okay?
Sure.
Yeah. What about the United Nations? What's their policy in this? Any kind of situation, that's what the United Nations is for, isn't it, really, yeah? To try and help the poor around the world.
Every country sort of gives their own military, so
that's right.
Collectively resolving issues around the world.
The 5 permanent members, what are they saying about it?
The United Nations is very quick to call certain places genocide. They haven't called the Rohingya issue a genocide. They are the largest people in the world that has no state. Millions of them are stateless. They are the largest stateless minority in the world. And the United Nations they've been called by human rights organizations to say to the United Nations, they told the United Nations, this is genocide, that's what's happening. Because they're going against the ethnic, they're not letting them, have births, they're restricting marriages, they're killing people, call it genocide, and the United Nations has not called it genocide. And they have not, and if you read the description that the United Nations puts up for genocide, it matches what the Rohingya are going through, but they have not been called it. And as I said, Kofi Annan came around, looked at the Muslim sites, again chaperoned and saw what he saw. Hayden was what he didn't see, and he's gone. And again, when this escalation happened, a few just words, they've been telling the government, can you sort it out? Nothing's happened.
Yeah. You've also got Aung San Suu Kyi there as well, isn't it? Because
she was a champion for human rights and
the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, she won the Nobel Peace Prize, and we know she's been on the media so much because of her, fight. Yet, she's been deafening silent in this issue, even though her party won the elections last. So she's got all the ability to do.
There has been many Rohingya Muslims that actually supported her party while she was persecuted by the military government, and now when she came into power, she's restricted the Muslims, the Rohingya Muslims that are outside the camp. They cannot even vote, and they have been denied going for elections or anything. And it shows the double standard. And she's going on our policy as well, being quiet. And she has pressure as well from the extremist Buddhists, which have a big following, the 969 movement, led by the extremist Buddhist monk Udatu. Yeah, and if you see, they call him the Bin Laden of Asia. Yeah, so you can see his videos. He's calmed down a lot because he's trying to go into the political as well. But his videos actually are inciting and have incited many Burmese Muslims to be killed, raped, and their businesses and tortured, everything. And yet, she's been silent on this, as she's also looking at her interests, and she doesn't want to rock the boat with the military junta as it comes out of the cold. And that's why she's been silent. she's trying to play. Okay, yes, I don't want to lose that public opinion, because at the moment they've created an environment where if anyone calls and supports the Rohingya Muslims, they're blacklisted, and she doesn't want to lose her popularity, and that's the double standard that everyone has to expose of hers. That's at the moment.
I think the Burmese are the most persecuted people without any friends in the world. So, nobody is fighting their corner. I think that's that's what it is. And I think the biggest problem you can see is people are thinking about their own interest instead of justice for these persecuted people. So Aung San Suu Kyi is interested in her, if you like, interest, which is that she doesn't want to rock the boat with the military junta. And I mean, some of the speeches that she's made, she refers them as Bengalis rather than referring them as Burmese. Yeah, so she still recognizes them as stateless, and she hasn't given them in a position within Burma, within Myanmar. And then if you look at the United Nations, obviously, that's a tool for those nations that want to.
I'm sure you've seen the interview in Al Jazeera with the government of Bangladesh, which is Sheikh Hasina, and her stance was, it's a sovereign country, it's not my issue. I mean, couldn't it be her issue? What's stopping her even saying something, little bit vocal, so a little bit of support, but completely nothing? Why is that?
Many people don't know that just recently she met Aung San Suu Kyi in the United Nations in New York, and they both pledged to work more closely economically and militarily, and this is the notion, that's her foreign policy. So that's why she's pushing the boats back, and that's why she's showing her true colours over that we're not going to interfere in this issue. If you see what she said, Aung San Suu Kyi said to an interview in the BBC, it's not ethnic cleansing, she said. What the world needs to understand is that the fear is not just on the side of the Muslims, but on the side of the Buddhists as well. And they have come over as migrants from Bangladesh, and that's why she's trying to push that and say that they're migrants. Where even Hasina's not even saying migrants, she's just doing the bidding of Myanmar and pushing the boats back in favor of economic and political reasons.
I mean, the point I wanted to make was, what allows the people in the world to see and watch this persecution and not do anything, including Hasina, where, it was very distasteful, this interview in Al Jazeera that Brother Khalid, you were mentioning.
Yeah.
I was, me as a Bengali, felt, how can she say that? Well, she represents me as a Bengali, and she's saying this, things like, she's saying that they can go back. Yeah, it's not my problem. Even if they're persecuted, it's the problem of Burmese. What are you coming to me for? Subhanallah, that's not a attitude of a Muslim. When people, and it shouldn't be attitude of humanity really, because if you think about it, these people are persecuted. Yeah, and if they're persecuted, you want to try and help them. This is. You could be persecuted. There could be comes a time when the Bengalis could be persecuted, and you'd expect other people to at least give you some help. Yeah, and for her to say it's not my problem, yeah, it's the Burmese problem, and then afterwards say also that she doesn't think the situation is very bad. Yeah, these people, they're braving the seas, the high seas. We're talking about Mediterranean.
She should see the baby that died on the border that came from Burma. And the pictures of the baby and the janazah of that 6-month-old baby, and the reality, and then that.
Yes, I think, but there's another thing in the world which is my interest, and I think this nation state is a really disease, if you like, and as a disease, what it allows you to do is to go and exploit other people, or you can see in front of your eyes other people being massacred, killed, and raped and tortured, and because they're not within your border, they're not within your people. I mean, these people, Rohingyas, they speak Bengali, they look like Bengalis, they're everything Bengali, but because they're across the border, they're in Burma, it's not my problem. Yeah, they can get raped, anything can happen to them. I'm not interested. And you find this similar thing with other nations when you're talking about the United Nations and the so-called rich capitalist nations in the West or the East. And one of the reasons that this Burmese issue is not being raised, is because Burma is seen as somewhere they can is coming out of the old junta into, if you like, the modern modern issues, and therefore it can be exploited. So if we want to go in there, if our businesses want to go in there, then we cannot criticize the government. We cannot criticize what they're doing. So again, it's this interest mentality which allows people to be massacred in front of us and nobody to say anything, because it's not in our interest to say anything in relation to that.
I mean, one of the arguments is Bangladesh is already overpopulated, so it's not to do with population. You're saying there is sizable empty land available, or many other facilities.
Look, it doesn't matter about population, or the thing is, at the end of the day, if there's persecution, if you have a plate of rice and you see somebody, they come to you, they haven't eaten it for weeks, you give them your plate of rice. You understand? Yeah. So that's the way the Muslim is taught. That's the way Islam is taught, if you like. And you will find that's the situation with the Muslims in terms of Bangladesh. They are heavily in support of the governments doing something about it, but the government is turning a blind eye. We have to look at how they're thinking as well. Bangladesh is the biggest provider to the United Nations in terms of support. United Nations, So United Nations going around in different places and trying to solve problems. This is the same kind of problem that they're trying to solve. But the United Nations goes to places based on the design of the capitalist nations, where they have a design. So you, as a country, send your soldiers and your peacekeeping troops to places just because somebody has some other interest in those places. Yet, right next to us, we have a problem, and we're not sending any support there.
Obviously, there are lots of activities Muslims in Britain can be doing. Is petition a good way to come to resolve these issues? Do you think that would work?
I mean, at the moment, everyone's doing what they can do, and we should not, say this ain't right, this ain't right. A lot of people are seeing charity, some people are doing petitions. But we need to look at the issue who are you petitioning? You're petitioning the same MPs, the same government that backs the Burmese government and its policies. The same government that, once Burma came out, David Cameron was one of the first UK Prime Ministers since its independence to visit Burma. Again, the military junta, the president, came to visit the UK. These are the same people that are silent on this issue. They have business deals, they have economic deals, they have military deals, they have their interest in containing China, and they are petitioning them to change it. They're not going to be speaking out against these issues anytime sooner. Petitions is good to, get the people, the Muslims are very, feeling it. That's one good sign of the petition, that people actually care about it. But at the end of the day, it's not going to solve the issue of the Burmese people. I've been seeing petitions before. Many of it's raised, and even if they get thousands, it doesn't get into the House of Commons or anything like that.
Does India have a big influence in, has a good relationship with Burma? And, do they support, because I was wondering, where do they get their military arms from? Must be from someone.
India has, relations with Burma. It has relations, but it's not a rosy relationship. The main partner and the main, ally that has been mainly for Burma has been the Chinese. They have been supporting them militarily, financially, during the Cold period. When they were they were seen as the, isolated people like North Korea. This is when the Chinese helped them. But now you're seeing the China is a nation that's coming up in the South Asia. It has ambitions, it has designs, and the US and Britain want to contain that. That's one of the reasons why they are in Burma. They have a policy to contain China and for the economic benefit. India as a nation has its own foreign policy as well. They want as well some of the cake that has been, Burma coming out of the cold. They want to invest in. It's a big market. It's a new market that hasn't had much technology, hasn't had much, goods. Everyone wants to have a piece of it. And so they're all looking at the interest. But Chinese at the moment are still one of the primary backers of that. But as the military hands over to the Democratic Party, you will see Britain, America, they will be coming in more as well, and replacing China's role in that. And it's already opening up. There has been, embassies been opened up. There have been more trade delegations. When David Cameron went, normally with him, a lot of trade went with him. Jaguar, other companies went with them. So they're seeing that's a big market, that untapped market.
Okay, we looked at Bangladesh, how it helps the plight of the Muslims in Burma. We know last time Turkey did a visit. Is there any follow-on from that visit? Could we have any hopes on the Turkish government or other neighboring countries such as Pakistan?
If you see what Turkey did when in the last time in 2012 when it happened, we saw the Turkish government sent aid. We even saw the Prime Minister come down, and even the wife of Erdogan came down, and they did the very little. But what people don't know, that they still have full diplomatic ties and full economic ties with Burma, and they have never told Burma openly, this is what you're doing is wrong, and you see that they haven't done anything recently. Even on the border with what we've seen in Syria, they're not doing nothing. I mean, and anytime sooner, it's the same countries, whether it's Turkey, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they're all nation states. They will not come to the aid as a country, as a government, to these to Burmese, and they've been very silent on this issue.
Some of the things, Bangladesh in part of the history, during I think it was 1978, where 250,000 that came over because of this persecution, and Bangladesh government, did try and do a little bit where they negotiate with the Burmese government in terms of anyone, they have to take them back. They have to take them back, and they have to give them citizenship, and the Burmese government said, yeah, that's fine. We'll take them back. We'll give them citizenship. But one thing they do every time they send people was that they strip them of all the papers, of all government documents of these people, and then they send them out on the boats and go. Yeah. So these people don't even have papers so that they can prove that they're Burmese. That's quite interesting, that happening. Going back to the solution that you were talking about in terms of what can they do? What would you say, Brother Ahmad, is required in terms of how we can
at the
solve
moment,
this?
We see that the United Nations is not doing nothing. We're seeing Muslim countries with a very muted response. We're not going to hear anything from the West or and any other nation. We have to look and see that it is only under Islam that that the Burmese Muslims are protected. We need to look at the history that we had, where the the Mughals at the time when they ruled India, and there was an incident where some the Burmese Muslims were being targeted. The Mughal rule at that time actually sent troops there to quell their oppression and say, look, you can't touch these are Muslims. And there's no one like that. It's only a military solution at the moment, or even a threat of a military solution that can actually stop the atrocities happening in Burma. Because the solution of the Burma is not going to be one of going to UN or calling on the West. It is rather through the army, even in the Muslim world, like the Bangladesh army. The rulers in the Muslim world will turn a blind eye. They have little interest. What is needed is a strong political voice, and a state and an army that will say, no more will this happen against our people. And as I said, Muslim armies in the past have done that. We know the history and how Bangladesh became Muslim. It's only through the army, and that they have been protected. And this is a solution that has to be, the call is to the armies. The Bangladesh army border patrols Myanmar on a daily basis. They can see what's happening. They can see who's coming over the border. Yet it's because of the secular government's policy that they are being confined to a certain mandate. But yet if they had a state that they could turn that and give them that vision, then you will see this issue being solved, like the issue of Kashmir, many other issues. It's an ongoing. The Burmese issue is just one of the sufferings of the Muslims in Turkey, whether it's in Syria, whether it's in Kashmir, whether it's in Palestine. This is the issue, and the Muslims, without a state, continue to suffer, and no one is a voice for them. And we, the Muslims on the ground in the Muslim countries, need to raise this opinion, and you could challenge that.
Brother Ahmed, the pretext is there already. If Bangladesh wanted to do something about it, because it has always been the case, isn't it? I mean, the fact America went into Iraq to support the Shia Muslims, if you like, as people being persecuted by Saddam. That's enough for pretext. And if you look at the negotiation during the 70s and 80s between the government of Bangladesh and Burma, where Burmese said that they will look after these as citizens, these people would be given rights, and the fact that these people haven't been given right, it doesn't, you can easily add 2 and 2 to say that if Bangladesh government wanted to do something, they can easily send an army into Burma and create a buffer zone. I mean, the Burmese, as far as I understand it, they're not very big in terms of military. They can't really do much. If the people there are also in support of an army as peacekeepers, look, we're peacekeepers. We came to just keep law and order here. At the same time, so I can't see any other solution, because these people are being massacred by the military. They're not, we're not talking about these militia groups and things like that, as if the government is trying to save them. The government is the one who is doing the killing.
So the military has tried to say that the Muslims that killed the border guards were jihadi organizations. They're rising up, and they have been trained in Bangladesh, and they are fighting in Burma now, and they're trying to, and that has given them the mandate. No one even knows who killed those border guards, and there's not been any proof or evidence that it was Muslims. But because remember, Burma has many ethnic tribes in Burma, many communist, many Maoist organizations. We don't know who did it, but what we clearly can see is it has been used by the Burmese government and the military to transgress and oppress the Rohingya Muslims once more, and send that message out that you guys are problems. And it's military fighting civilians, unarmed civilians. They are fighting, actually killing them, torturing them, raping them.
Can I quickly take a question from the messages that's come through? One of the questions is: Bangladesh army can go thousands of miles across the world to die in front line on the orders of foreigners, but can't do anything just to cross the border. And there was another question which I think is not related. I'll ask you later. So could you explain what's going on here?
This is it. Bangladesh government has kept the Bangladesh army busy through UN missions, and they're in places like Haiti, which is a disaster at the moment. They're in African countries, in Somalia, in Central African countries. The United Nations army has been kept. That's one way the Bangladesh government has kept the Bangladesh army busy on that. We don't even need to send an army. The threat of the Bangladesh army is a very well disciplined, structured army, well respected army, and the threat of it, of just threatening the government of Myanmar, you will see a big improvement, and the United. This is it, because the missions at the moment, they've been sent by Hasina to do certain missions, and this is not going in the interest of the Muslims, and we're going to see that happening over and over again. That they're going to send them over to Haiti and other countries, but yet on their borders they can hear the screams, they can hear the cries, but no one's doing nothing about them, and that's very unfortunate.
To add to this, if you look at the Muslims are quite a lot of number in the whole world, 1.3 billion, 1.5 billion Muslims. So Burmese government is a very small government, and the number of people is 50 million. Yeah. So if you look at Indonesia 250 million, Bangladesh 150 million. So it's because I think they see the government will not, even though the people, you can see the people are out on the streets. Yeah. I've seen demonstrations in Malaysia, Indonesia, Bangladesh, and these are not small in number, they're huge in number, and these people would do anything for their governments to intervene, to do something about it. But we've got this these rulers who are effectively, kind of like security guards for these persecutors, really. Yeah, I think that's where things are at the moment.
Okay, another quick question which has come through. How are different groups of Muslims responding to this crisis? And how effective is our efforts? I personally am getting frustrated as there doesn't seem to be any solution to any crisis that Muslims go through.
You know what? I mean, it was one thing. There was a response by the government, and then there's a response by the people. And alhamdulillah, I'm heartened to see the response and the organization by the people in terms of what they believe they can do. Obviously, the solutions that may come, I think we need to discuss the solutions that is on the table. But there is this huge uprise in terms of the people. Everyone is frustrated that they're not able to do anything. And we see people collecting money to try and send. We see people, lobbying the MPs in this country, in other countries, and demonstrating outside Burma embassy. Even here in Whitechapel, we had a demonstration last Sunday outside Al Tabali Park. So people want to do something. People, feel the agitation. People, there's goodness in the people, in the Ummah, in the Muslims. The thing is, the solutions, we need to look at the real solutions in terms of, yes, these people, because of the malnutrition and so on, we do need to provide in terms of charity. But this is not a problem of charity as such, That will only alleviate the situation for a while, or those people who have escaped the persecution. But there's huge number, 1 million we're talking about, that are facing the persecution in Rakhine and in these regions, in Burma and Myanmar itself. And that problem requires it's a military problem, really. It's a problem of one where, the Burmese government needs to be told they can't do what they're doing. We really, and the Muslims have huge in number in terms of military power, which they can utilize, the force that they can utilize. Just the threat, like Brother Ahmad saying, just the threat of saying that, we'll come in unless you stop, unless you, give these people their rights, then it's not going to stop. It's not going to stop by you filling up a truck and sending. Obviously, you can't even go beyond the border of Bangladesh. So these are the people that managed to escape. Maybe you can, give them a bit of food here and there, but that's not solving the problem. We need to realize what the real problem is, and we need to tackle that.
Okay, obviously there's petitions going around. We've gone to a protest here in UK, and,
Yes, I commend all of that. Like I said, I commend all of those actions because people don't know what to do. People want to do something, and whatever is given in front of them, they are doing. But to realize, how do we solve this problem? Where does the problem lie? The problem lies. The fact is that the government of Burma is, systematically, killing these people, persecuting these people. So just because you may send a bit of charity to these people or give put a petition into your MP, we have to look at these MPs as well. We have to look at these nations. We talked about earlier, all of these nations, they have their own interests. So their interest lies in trying to get a piece of Burma, which means, allowing the government to do what it likes over there, as long as I can get a piece of that cake.
And if I can add as well, we need to look at the issues not in just isolation of Burma. If you think about it, the same issue is happening in Kashmir, where the Muslims in Kashmir are being persecuted by India, and yet on the border of Kashmir you have the Pakistan army, a nuclear army, one of the best armies in the world, that can solve the issue, yet it doesn't do so. You have the issue in Syria, where we see in the Muslims in Aleppo, in eastern Aleppo, where they're going through a crisis, unimaginable horrors going through. It's across all our media, and we can see it. Yet again, we see that on the borders of Syria, we have countries like Turkey, we have countries like, Iraq, different countries that have the capability to solve the issue. But it's because of these nation states and their rulers these issues are not going to go away, and in the long run they're getting worse. And today it could be Burma, today it could be Kashmir, it could be Syria. Who knows where the next conflict will come, and who knows where the next Muslims will be persecuted and oppressed again in this vicious cycle that we see.
Can we or can we not look to these democratically elected Muslim rulers in the Muslim country, or can we not pin our hopes on democracy itself now? Is that what you're saying?
What I would say to that is really, do those leaders express the feelings and the aspirations of the people within those lands? Yeah, and just take the Burma issue. Wherever you look, the Muslims are agitated by the fact that their leaders are not doing anything about Burma. And it's not just Burma, like Brother Ahmad is saying. In any of these issues, whether it's the laws within the country or even outside supporting, the Muslims are not meant to be divided into 50 nations. They're not meant to be like that. Within Islam, we're talking about one leadership, and that leadership protects the Muslims wherever they are. And it's not like we don't have the ability to protect. Like we said, Burma is a very, very small country. We can easily protect that. Yeah. So as 1.5 billion, the largest community in terms of look at where the world's resources lie, it's really under the Muslims. Yeah. So Muslims have that ability, and they also have been given that duty of protecting the oppressed wherever they are. They don't even have to be Muslims. If they are oppressed in the world, it is required that the Muslims act and try and remove that oppression. Yeah, and because we have that ability, the only thing that's preventing that ability being utilized, being used, is these leaders who are really detached from the people. So we have an aspiration as people, as Muslims, and they have their own, very materialistic, ulterior motives for what they do. And as a result of that, what you find is they do not act in the best interest of Islam, and they don't act in the best interest of the people that they are meant to be managing.
I'll give you a reality as well. On the ground in Bangladesh, there's many Muslims that are coming over from Burma, and the government of Bangladesh has even banned charities that are trying to help the Rohingya Muslims from Burma. They've locked a few of them up. They've deployed other foreign ones, and they're making life difficult. You have 250,000 Muslims, Burmese Muslims living in Burma. They had a bad life in Burma, but they have a bad life in Bangladesh itself, where they can't even work there. They can't work there. They have to, stay in a certain area. Only 30,000 of them are registered as refugees, and the rest of them, they have to, do whatever they can to survive in that country. But it's a policy that has been, enacted by Bangladesh government to really restrict and, deter others from coming over and looking after their own interests. And it's a shame.
What I would say is, alhamdulillah, the work that the Muslim community is doing is good, but we need to step up a gear and actually ask for the real solution. And we need to really talk to our family back home to say, look, what is Hasina government doing? If we're Pakistani, what is the Nawaz Sharif government doing? These government, they're meant to represent us. What is it that you want? These people are our brothers, our sisters are being massacred, and we're not doing nothing. We're just sitting there saying, it's a Burmese problem. We need to motivate that, cultivate that within our friends and relatives and back home, so that they put pressure on Hasina, put pressure on Nawaz Sharif or Erdogan. Erdogan, who champions himself as a Muslim ruler, as someone who's for Islam, yet we saw just recently where he's able to put fire out in Israel. He's able to send military aircrafts to go and put fire out in Israel, which is really an enemy of Islam, which is a dagger in the heart of the Muslims. Yet he's not able to send any kind of support to put the fire out in Burma, or even next to him in Syria. We see what's happening in Syria and the killing and the massacre of people there, and he's not able to do that. Now, the only reason these people get away with it is because we haven't put enough pressure on them. These people, we know what needs to be done. Yeah, we know these people have the capability of doing it, yet, they do not do it, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has, ordered them to do that. The thing is, if we don't do that, then when these oppressed people, they put their hands up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and say, Ya Allah, we didn't have any help, we will be in trouble. Yeah, these leaders are going to be in trouble, but we will be in trouble because we are in a position of being able to do something.
If I could say as well, the Muslims in the UK, they still need to continue being shoulder to shoulder with the Muslims around the Muslim world. They need to have that, and they need to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Muslims in Burma, with the Muslims in Kashmir, with the Muslims in Syria, and we need to be the voice. As we said before, the mainstream media is not going to be covering it. Many Muslims don't know about this issue and are starting to find out about the issue. We're one ummah. We need to be with the ummah and help them in every capacity that we can and get that message out that this will continue to happen without a real political voice and a threat of a military that will give the voice to the Burmese military to stop these atrocities.
Yeah. So I would say what the people should demand really is, if these leaders are not going to stand up for the Muslims, are not going to be there to lead the Muslims rather than be puppets of the Western capitalist nations, then really the Muslims should ask them to step aside. They should ask them to step aside, and there should really be a sincere leadership who will implement Islam as in the Khilafah system, who will implement Islam and will and the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu from behind whom is like a shield from behind whom we will protect ourselves.
Okay. So basically, you're saying the Muslims should boycott these secular politicians and governments. That's one.
Unfortunately, in countries like Bangladesh, where thousands of people support these secular parties day in, day out, and they elect them, they need to remind themselves that they're going to be accountable to Allah, that they're electing the rulers that are turning a blind eye to the massacres, and they are putting their crosses on those parties to support their policies as well, and they are further hindering this ummah from from being protected, and this is something that I fear and everyone else should be fearing, is how am I aiding the Muslims, and what should our response be? We should be the ones that are helping the ummah, not being a hindrance to the ummah.
I think still you have a lot of people in Britain itself calling for many different solutions, and do you think some of the solutions really it's not sort of like a unification of the ummah, like they say in Britain itself, rather we're going on the doorsteps of the ones that are really causing the problem rather than really do you have any sensation of this problem?
I mean, for me, I will say the Burmese issue, the Muslim issue hasn't been it's just come to recently, in the recent years, where previously you've seen Muslims being very, they never knew about the Burmese issue. So that's a positive sign that people are actually now reading up about it, finding out about what's happening. There's Muslims in Burma, what's happening to them. They're talking about it. Relatives are talking about it. You will see our frustration. People are doing different things. And naturally people would not, unless we have a unifying thought, people will do different things, and they're doing what they feel is the best, and we need to channel that in the right direction, and realize that the bigger issue is something that it's a political issue. It's a political issue that they haven't got a voice. They are state within a state that have been persecuted, and and there's no one that is helping them. And where will the petitions, where will the money raised? Even the money raised, I mean, I've heard from charities that they are there. Many of the money doesn't even get to the camps in Burma. They won't allow them in. And even the ones in Bangladesh, how is the money being utilized? Where's the accountability? It's easy to raise the money. It's easy to do a petition. But the long term, we need to look at the long-term solutions, and to really put an end to this issue is a long-term solution is needed on that.
So the Muslim community have various different ideas. I mean, like in Egypt, we have the Muslim Brotherhood participated in democracy, and at the end, we didn't see anything good come out of it. Rather, loads of death sentences. So, from Islam itself, what would be a pure solution, a halal way to go about solving this issue? I mean, even our ideas has to be in line with the Quran and Sunnah. So would there be anything in the Quran and Sunnah that we could look to and probably go forward?
Yeah, I mean, there's a hadith of Rasulullah which says if somebody saves one soul, it's like saving the whole of humanity. So from that, if you derive the policies from that in terms of the Muslims, that's what you get. The fact that if there's oppression, then you need to save it. You need to work to change that oppression. So we know if you can change it with your hand, then you change it. If you can't, then you speak out against it. Yeah, and if you can't, then you hate it in your heart. So we can speak out against this. We can speak out against our leaders in terms of what they are doing in terms of their ability, and where they are not doing it, we need to really speak out against them. And these people in Bangladesh recently, they've removed from the state Islam as a religion, as a state, even though Bangladesh was formed on the basis that we need to separate from the people of the Hindu of India. That was the reason why originally it became Pakistan. Yeah. But slowly what we see our leaders doing is slowly eroding away, etching at Islam slowly, and we need to speak out. If we don't, then very soon the Islam that we recognize will not be there. It'll be a different Islam, and the persecution will increase, and the number of countries in terms of where we are being persecuted will increase again and again. So the thing that we can do is we can demand our leaders implement what we believe to be true. That's what we can do.
I mean, if you look at Quranic ayahs that are talking about Allah in Surah An-Nur, Allah has promised those who have believed among you and done righteous deeds that He will surely grant them succession to authority upon the earth, just as He granted it to those before them, and that He will surely establish for them their religion which He has preferred for them, and He will surely substitute for them after their fear security. So we need to go back to the Quran, reflect on the ayahs that have been revealed, and connect with them to look at the solution for the Muslims.
What I would say is, it's not always doom and gloom. I think there is, if you look at the world, there is an Islamic uprising, and inshallah, very soon situation will change. Because in all of the cases, you can see it's a Muslim, whether it's in Palestine, Kashmir, Syria, Burma, the Central African Republic, everywhere it's the Muslims that are being persecuted, and there is nobody there to stand up for the Muslims. But that's not going to be the situation for long, inshallah, because more and more people we can see realizing that the current world order is not really geared for the Muslim. It's not really giving the Muslims anything, and they are being persecuted, and they are realizing that they need to really look for an alternative way of doing things and alternative system. And that alternative system is really the Khilafah system, the Islamic system. And inshallah, and that will be there to protect them.
If your listeners want to know more about Burma, there's a report that I've done, I think maybe you can put the links in, that gives the history and a backdrop about the whole thing. That might be a good place to start for listeners to get up to date with what happened. I wrote it last year, so it could be up to date as well. It's quite comprehensive. It covers different countries, different regions. So I think that'd be a good start for the listeners as well to get more background reading on that.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, Brother Ahmaduddin and Khairul Islam. We'll have to end it here, and inshallah, until next week, thank you to our listeners. Assalamu alaikum.
Middle Path Radio, your source of Islamic knowledge.